views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Get fired up for Spirit Fire Radio with your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer. Get ready to shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in these modern times. Bring purpose to your life through practical spirituality and add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer.
Hello, and welcome to Spirit Fire Radio. My name is Steve Kramer, and I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Steve. Great to be here.
I know. So we are going to talk about silence. Isn't that interesting, talking about silence? This whole month, we're talking about right speech. And silence is a really important part of language. It is the space between. They say that silence is golden. So, learning when to speak and when to be silent is a really important lesson. So all this episode, we're going to talk about the power of silence. We're going to talk about its connection to wisdom and to inner strength and to speaking with authenticity. So I look forward to our conversation. Dorothy, before we start, you want to tell the listeners a little bit about our awesome collaboration so they know where we are coming from?
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks. This show is a collaboration between two educational nonprofits with similar missions. I am from the School for Esoteric Studies, which provides esoteric discipleship training for persons who wish to become world servers. And we, over the last couple of years, have been consciously looking for other spiritual groups to collaborate with. And you can find more about our collaborations at our website, esotericstudies.net. And we are absolutely delighted to be collaborating with Spirit Fire on this radio show.
Indeed. Esotericism is really a passion for both of our organizations. Spirit Fire offers training in meditation through the practice of living awareness, which is our own meditation practice. And we covered that quite a bit on the first season of Spirit Fire Radio. Really amazing shows talking about the power of meditation. And silence is such a huge part of that. When we go into silence, we learn to observe ourselves. We generate focus. Meditation really helps us connect with our higher selves. It connects us with the higher aspects of our being, with our soul. They say that silence is an important aspect of the soul. Yeah, Dorothy?
Oh, absolutely. Steve, I'd like to share two quotes right at the beginning of this program from one of my favorite authors, Ursula Le Guin, and from my all-time favorite book called Wizard of Earthsea. And she has two quotes that I think are very relevant to our conversation today. One is, "For a word to be spoken, there must be silence before and after." And then the other quote is, "To hear, one must be silent."
I'd love to hear a bit more from you on both of those, because they're very different, right? They're two different aspects of silence. So for a word to be spoken, there must be silence before and after the word. So a pause, right? And then the word comes into form.
That's right. And we actually, in meditation practice, we talk about, interludes, the whole rhythm. But if I run my words together, you can't really understand me, right? The words themselves have an integrity, and that integrity shines forth when they are set off by silence, when they are surrounded by silence.
Indeed, the pause, the pregnant pause, as we often say within the practice of living awareness, is often as rich as the word itself, because it actually allows for that vibration of the word to settle, just as the breath, as we breathe, as that pause between the inhale and the exhale, we're actually allowing the magic of all that to sort of take place, right?
Mm-hmm. And then in terms of the second quote, to me, it's a reminder that if we are participating in our group life, if we're going to hear other people, we have to be silent. And also, so often when we are, quote, listening to somebody else, we're not really hearing them. We're busy in our own mind thinking about what we're going to say next.
That's a point.
So we may be verbally silent, but mentally we're not silent. To hear, one must be silent.
Yes,
be receptive.
I love the word equanimity, because it's about sort of composure, both inside and outside. That to hear, one must be silent means we almost have to sort of silence all of ourselves and actually really be open and receptive to what somebody has to say. And gosh, receptivity is an important part of the group life, right?
Yes.
Nice. So, being silent, on talk radio, I want to sort of laugh a little bit about an experience that Tim and I had last season. We had somebody on the show who was a shamanic sound healer, and he did the most beautiful toning where you're using your voice to create these really beautiful sounds. And we were so moved by the vibration that was created, even through our headphones, and we could just tell this vibration going through the airwaves, that we were speechless, and the vibration lingered. And it was almost doing it a disservice to speak right away, but we were on talk radio, and actually came on and said, guys, he actually came on and said on air, guys, are you there? And we were just basking in the beautiful vibration that some would say was silence, but we actually experienced as the after effects of the beautiful sound that he had created. So it reminds me a bit of that, both of those quotes, that we had to really remain silent for almost an extended period because we were still allowing that to sort of penetrate us and integrate into our being. So that, in a sense, that was an important aspect of receiving.
Well, what you remind me of, Steve, when you say that is something that I think is important to articulate, and that is silence is not empty.
Right.
We talked last week about our universe being a vibrational universe. There is always vibration. We are always surrounded and encompassed by vibration. So silence has its own vibration.
Indeed. And allows, right? It allows for another to be. I love that aspect. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also I find that when we're not speaking, it's not just allowing someone else to speak in a way, we're actually opening ourselves up to other sensory perceptions. They say when we shut off our speech, it heightens our awareness in other areas. And I know here at Spirit Fire, that's a huge aspect of silent retreats. We have silent retreats often. So I'd love to spend some time maybe in the next segment to talk about my experience within a silent retreat. Maybe our listeners have not ever done that, but boy, in this noisy world, it's amazing to watch people sort of come to life in a way by just taking speech or taking sound out of their experience and finding new ways to listen, to sort of listen with their eyes or listen with their nose. It becomes it can become a very rich experience for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of my childhood friend who, when I visited her, she had just had two boys who were pre-adolescent, and she talked about how she had them sit quietly for a certain period of time, like 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day, to just sit quietly. And the result of that was that each of them began to produce poetry. It came out of their souls, out of their own experience, and in fact got poems published in the local paper.
Wow, how beautiful. She gave them their own little silent retreat every day, right?
That's right.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you say that their souls created poetry, right? Because it really is, silence is really this opportunity for the mind to access finer vibrations of ourselves, that the mind actually has access to the soul. And when our minds are just busy and constantly creating thoughts, we don't often, it can be a hindrance to allowing that finer vibration of the soul to pour down into our personality and become a part of our being.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dorothy, we're at the first break. When we come back, let's talk a bit about that, about the beauty of silence and what it can generate for us. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Tune in to The Jen Royster Show, intuitive guidance to inspire your life, each Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This amazing show is an inspirational hour that will take you on an epic metaphysical journey to discover the spiritual approach to life's greatest challenges. Dr. Jen is an internationally known intuitive counselor, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. Call in for intuitive readings and visit JenRoyster.com for more information.
Get ready to experience Truth Talk Radio with host Deb Acker. Tune in to Truth Talk Radio each Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com to illuminate the truth in your daily life as you experience life, love, and abundance from a whole new perspective. This hit show will leave you feeling lighter and bring you into a place of infinite possibilities every day in every way. Visit TruthTalkRadioshow.com for upcoming transformative topics and guests.
Want to help reduce the divisiveness in our world? Each year, the School for Esoteric Studies holds a subjective group conference. This year, our focus is on unity in diversity, the science of right human relations. From April till June, we will meditate together, study relevant writings, and share practical strategies for improving how we relate with each other. Join us to help build inclusive communities. Check on our subjective group conference at esotericstudies.net. That's the School for Esoteric Studies at esotericstudies.net.
Are you looking for the perfect setting for your next workshop or retreat? At Spirit Fire Meditative Retreat Center, cultivating consciousness is what we do best. Our guests count on us to create an atmosphere that supports serenity and well-being. We lead from the heart and create space for the mind. Freshly prepared meals designed with local and organic ingredients, 95 acres of beautiful woods and pastures, and a facility built with green in mind. This is what you'll find at Spirit Fire. For more information, visit SpiritFireRetreatCenter.com.
Tune in to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. The Lucid Planet. Welcome home. Visit lucidplanetradio.com for more information.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. We are on talk radio talking about silence. I love that.
An interesting contradiction.
It certainly is. And beautiful, right? It's both parts of a whole. I love that we had said it in the first segment that there has to be silence before and after words. It's all part of a continuum. So I find it fascinating here at Spirit Fire. So this is a collaboration between the School for Esoteric Studies and Spirit Fire, and both of us. Meditation is a really important part of both of our nonprofits and our training. And here at the Retreat Center, we often have silent retreats, and it is just such an amazing experience to be around individuals who have chosen to be in silence for a period of time. Sometimes we have week-long silent retreats or just weekends where people want to get away from the noise of their world and sort of open themselves up to I find appreciating the world around them in a different way. We had said earlier that when you take speech away, that your other senses come alive in certain ways. And I find that people they appreciate the food, they appreciate the flowers, they appreciate the smells. And it's almost like their mind isn't engaged in the constant chatter, and they are actually able to appreciate the world around them in a new way. But one thing I find really interesting about these retreats is that it's not only about not speaking, but it's really about being conscious in every way. So it's about creating spaciousness also in your body language. Can you have a quietness to your movements where you're not sort of eliciting a response from somebody else? And so it becomes about being careful not to disturb the silence of another person. And you had said earlier, Dorothy, that to hear one must be silent. So I find what's interesting is people start to relate to others almost energetically because they're not listening to them and talking to them through conversation. They have conversations with their bodies and with their energy, and they start to interact in almost this dance. And it's just so beautiful. It's a really lovely thing. And another aspect relates to our last show. We were talking about passing through the three gates, that before you speak, you should ask, is it true what you're saying? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Well, that aspect of is it necessary is really important at during a silent retreat, that we at Spirit Fire, when we do our own silent retreats, we don't say that you can't speak at all. We don't sort of restrict you from saying anything, but we ask that you ask yourself, is it necessary? So if someone were to say to you, one of the kitchen staff, would you like some honey for your tea? You could respond and say, yes, thank you. And that's not breaking the silence because it's perfectly aligned. There's no disturbance. So it's this totally graceful move. So I find that silence is actually rich, that it has a lot to do with appropriateness, and it has a lot to do with allowing for flow. So really, really a wonderful treat to give yourself that opportunity to experience the fullness and the richness of silence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Steve.
I'm curious, have you done any silent retreats?
I have, yes.
And
for me, that whole heightened awareness is certainly part of it, and also just becoming aware of how distracting sound can be.
Right.
Speech, and other kinds of sound, and how precious having silence is, particularly in our world today.
Yeah. We were saying earlier that it allows for the finer vibrations of the soul to pour down into the personality. With both of us esoterically, so much of our evolution has to do with integrating the personality and the soul. And when we give ourselves space and we create space, that stillness that you were just talking about, I find it really allows for the finer vibrations of the soul to actually pour down and be received in a really sort of fruitful way. I think of an hourglass, that if you're trying to get the sand to come down through an hourglass and you're moving it and shaking it all about, it doesn't come down in a very efficient way. But if we hold ourselves still, if we put the hourglass on a table, that the sand pours down beautifully. So I equate that sort of to silence and being in a silent, still environment.
Mm-hmm. I equate it also to being centered. That feeling of being kind of just right at, it's almost like being in the eye of the storm, just of being in that very quiet, still space. And even if one isn't on a silent retreat, if we talk about everyday life, to me it's part, if we think back to the 3 gates, it's part of participating in community life in a way where I listen in order to understand and to connect. And I contribute only when what I contribute will move the conversation forward. I don't contribute in order to be liked or to be seen as being particularly wise or being accepted because I'm saying something that other people want to hear. But I speak because it moves our community experience forward.
Right. Like, is it purposeful? Is there? There's a beautiful quote by Dwa Kul, who is a Tibetan Lama who has written quite a bit of the literature of the Ageless Wisdom. And he says, "Let silence reign as the result of a heart free from self-questioning and not the result of shutting the door." So I find that is very similar to what you were saying, that it is about heart. There are qualities of heart, which to me, the heart is all about interconnection and interdependence, and that you allowing silence to reign as a result of a heart free from self-questioning, which is, again, what you were saying about if we're constantly speaking and it's sort of self-referential, or it is because we just feel the need that we've got to, our input is necessary, that if it's about just allowing, and if it is about community, if it's about respecting and engaging in that connection, in allowing, and not, he says, as not the result of shutting the door, meaning like I am separating myself from that which is said. I'm sort of forcing myself into silence, but that silence can be a part of connection and of interconnection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also want to just mention, Steve, another role of silence, which is a bit different, and that is sometimes we have to remain silent for safety reasons. That it is not safe for us to draw any attention to ourselves. We have to not speak out. And this is particularly difficult if we're in a situation where we are observing harm being done to someone else. You're witnessing a gang rape, for example, and there's no way that you as an individual can actually intervene successfully. All you'll do is get beaten up or raped yourself. But what we can do, the silent role, as opposed to turning away, is bear witness. And I think that that's another role of silence, is to be willing to be present, even if the only thing we can do is to bear witness.
Right. So again, it's not shutting the door, which could be seen as sort of turning away, but actually that you are engaged in a way that is bearing witness. Yeah, I definitely can appreciate that. Indeed. So when not to be silent, right? I mean, there is certainly a time to be silent, and then there is a time not to be silent.
And I think that that's a really important discussion. I wonder if we can get to that right after the break.
Yeah, it made me think right away of in politics these days. I was amazed that and I don't know if it was the CEO, but it was somebody from ExxonMobil who was, certainly a leader from ExxonMobil that was advising our president not to ignore the Paris Accords, that really they should be respected, and that we could still be competitive within the climate. All of the conclusions and the promises that countries have made about climate control. And I found that speaking out there is a time for silence and there's a time not to be silent. So quite interesting. Yes, let's talk the two of those. We're going to go to a break. It's time for that again. And when we come back, let's talk about the difference between those two. When is a good time to be silent and when not to be silent?
Chris Stanis is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
What if your body and mind were the compasses to the secrets, mysteries, and magic of life? Glenna Rice, co-host of The Questionable Parent, is inviting you to access all that is possible. Glenna is a 10-year certified veteran access consciousness facilitator who offers an amazing variety of life-changing classes and workshops. Work with Glenna from anywhere with teleclasses and workshops all over the globe. To learn more and see Glenna's current schedule of events, classes, and workshops, visit glennarice.com.
Interested in deepening your spiritual practice? The School for Esoteric Studies offers online training to spiritual seekers from all paths of life and individual coaching. Our courses synthesize Eastern and Western spiritual traditions based on meditation, study, and service applied to everyday life. To learn more about our courses and services, please visit www.esotericstudies.net.
What is a brilliant culture, and how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you align your culture with your business strategy for exceptional results. Looking for a culture that drives organizational excellence? Listen to Cultural Brilliance Radio, the second and fourth Friday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit culturalbrilliance.com.
Awareness is universal. Establishing a living awareness through meditation brings peaceful, healthy, and creative well-being into your everyday life. The practice of living awareness, Spirit Fire's own meditation practice, is built on this belief and is designed for every level of practitioner. Each year, Spirit Fire hosts living awareness meditation retreats that allow you to explore the practice in depth at our retreat center in beautiful Western Massachusetts. Introduce yourself to meditation and the practice at the Foundation's retreat. Attend, in silence, a silent meditation retreat focused on mindfulness, presence, and nature, or be engaged with the meditation sittings themselves at the Deepening Retreat. Start adding to your awareness and attend a meditation retreat designed to cultivate consciousness in your everyday life. For details on attending a Living Awareness meditation retreat, visit upcoming events at www.spiritfire.com.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. We're talking about silence. All month we are going to be talking about right speech. It is such an important aspect of the spiritual path. It really has quite a bit to do with taking responsibility for your thoughts. Thoughts become words, and words turn into actions. So right speech is really such a core topic to discuss when we're talking about our spiritual path. And within speech must be silence. So we were talking about that balance, Dorothy, right, of when to be silent and when not to be silent. And I'm wondering, I know you always come with some beautiful quotes. I'm wondering if there's one that you might grace us with.
Well, actually, Steve, I've got 3 that I want to share right now.
It's beautiful.
Because I think this is a really important aspect. The first one is by Martin Luther King. He said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." So, we'll remember when our friends should have spoken up, but they didn't. Right. And then the next quote is Eli Wiesel. "Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere when human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy." So we have to speak out. And this is, of course, we can be reminded of the whole debate that surfaces now and then as to what people ought to have done during the Second World War when the Jews were being exterminated. And here's another one. Again, this is from right now, from this past 2 weeks. The GE CEO said in relation to U.S. administration actions, "I think we're cowards if we don't speak out." And he was speaking out particularly about the travel ban and the rollback of environmental regulations and the whole idea of a border wall. And what struck me about that, Steve, is he said it in a context where he acknowledged, in a nice way, but acknowledged that he was aware that the president does sometimes act in a way that seems spiteful, that there could be repercussions for his speaking out, but that he felt it was critical to speak out. And I thought that was very laudable.
Right. So much of that going on. I mean, I sense that we are really learning quite a bit about the power of speech. We mention it all the time, Dorothy, correct, about fake news and the impact that these words have, and that one has to speak out if there is not truth, if that is one of the gates. Is it truthful? And so it's so imperative that these persons in positions of power come out and say, yes, indeed. If we're not willing to do that, we're not leaders. These are leaders, and we're cowards if we don't speak out. So may it be so, right, Dorothy? And
right.
may the conversation stay truthful and stay important, or stay useful, right? And stay good.
Well, and I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that being silent is not neutral. Especially when that silence condones harmful actions. When speaking out can help stop something that is unjust or that will be harmful to the human family. And when our silence would allow someone to be unjustly maligned or negatively stereotyped. And this, I find, is an issue for me when people make jokes. If they make jokes that are denigrating of another person or another group, it's easy in that context to just not say anything because it's awkward to say anything. And yet, if I don't say something, then I am implicitly agreeing with the content of that joke.
Right. I couldn't agree more with that, and I have to say that I get quite vigilant when it comes to jokes. For many years, Dorothy, I would not allow people to tell Michael Jackson jokes in my presence. I just wouldn't allow it. I had the utmost respect for this man, and I just thought they were so crude. And if my friends heard somebody telling one of these jokes around, I just would say, hey, they would say, don't say that around Steve. So I agree. There is a time when we've just got to call people on on the impact of their words. And even if so many times we write it off as just being a joke, but really, it really paints a picture of humanity as a whole. We've got to learn to respect ourselves, and you're helping somebody respect themselves by just calling out on crudeness. I find even in film, comedy often will be so crude. There was a movie with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy called The Heat, and all my friends were watching it, and within that film, it was humor just based on insulting each other, and everybody thought it was so funny, and I just couldn't stay silent. I had to say, guys, I don't think this is funny. People are being harmed, and they said, "Oh, Steve, come on, you're too sensitive." And I thought, no, we have to watch. We have to watch how.
Well, another aspect of the whole issue of when not to be silent is that there's actually a legal term called willful blindness, which is when someone is complicit in a crime by purposely looking away, purposely not wanting to know what's going on. And yet, of course, they do know what's going on. And there are contexts in which that complicity is actually itself a crime. And so the example that comes to my mind that's been on the news that just pains me so is the young woman who was raped, and the rape was live streamed on Facebook, and 40 people viewed the live stream, and none of them called the police. None of them reported it. And to me, that silence is damning.
And would those people be held accountable? Was that part of it? And in a way, you're not reporting a crime. I mean, you're right. That's illegal.
But yes, it should be. Now, whether the whole issue of, online social media is, I think, still a gray area. I think they're having enough trouble finding the perpetrators of the actual rape. I don't know if that attention has turned to those people, and I don't know if those people can actually be identified, or if it's just that one sees the number of viewers.
Right. It makes me think of the service triangle. I am an esoteric healer, so I work with energy and the healing capacity of energy. And the throat center, we use our voice to use your voice to be of service. There's a service triangle that engages certain energy points, almost like acupuncture points within the body. And it's the shoulders, the elbows, and the hands. So in that instance of this live stream, by not using your voice, it is a disservice. You are not actually lending a hand. You are not being of help. And, the voice can be so powerful and so healing and be of service. And we've got to use that, right? We've got to use it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It makes me think, Dorothy, just all of a sudden, we were just teaching a class in Boston. We were teaching esoteric healing. And somebody mentioned a woman who had developed polyps on her vocal cords. And it came to light over that many, many, many years ago, she had a child, and it was back in the day when you would just very politely and discreetly disappear for a year and go have a child and come back, and she was never to speak of this child. And over the years, she developed polyps on her throat, and it was from not using her voice. It was from this sort of forced silence actually had an impact on her health, and she developed these polyps. And as she started to speak about it, as she realized that it had something to do with her voice, actually losing her voice and feeling that she couldn't speak her truth, that was a part of the healing process, which was coming to terms with that and speaking about it and actually letting her voice and her story be told. That was all part of the healing process. So goodness, this balance of when are we silent and when are we not silent is such an important consideration indeed. So, Dorothy, we're going to go to a break in a minute, and I'd love for us to, when we get back, to talk to our listeners about cultivating silence. So I think, we've covered quite beautifully this impact that silence can have, and perhaps people are thinking, I don't have as much silence in my life as I'd like to. So when we come back, I'd love it if we could talk about ways of cultivating silence.
Great.
Wonderful. So let's go to a break, and when we come back, cultivating silence in your life.
Tune in to Dynamics of Diversity Radio, scripting the new narrative for immigration with leading experts Kripa Upadhyaya and Steve Tanijo on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This show will remove the noise that often accompanies discussions on this topic and share a new perspective on the dynamics of immigration and diversity, ever reminding us that together we are all at the core of innovation, excellence, and positive change. Visit OrbitLawPLLC.com for upcoming topics.
Awareness is universal. Establishing a living awareness through meditation brings peaceful, healthy, and creative well-being into your everyday life. The practice of living awareness, Spirit Fire's own meditation practice, is built on this belief and is designed for every level of practitioner. Each year, Spirit Fire hosts living awareness meditation retreats that allow you to explore the practice in depth at our retreat center in beautiful Western Massachusetts. Introduce yourself to meditation and the practice at the Foundation's retreat. Attend, in silence, a silent meditation retreat focused on mindfulness, presence, and nature, or be engaged with the meditation sittings themselves at the Deepening Retreat. Start adding to your awareness and attend a meditation retreat designed to cultivate consciousness in your everyday life. For details on attending a Living Awareness meditation retreat, visit upcoming events at www.spiritfire.com.
Gifted intuitive healer and spiritual teacher Sarah Luce brings her unique style to the hit show Small Steps, Big Breakthrough Radio on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in each month as Sarah turns reality on end and shows us how to experience expansive results with simple yet powerful steps. Expect an enlightening bend on what you currently believe is possible. For show details and upcoming topics, visit sarahloos.com. That's SARALOOS.com.
Want to help reduce the divisiveness in our world? Each year, the School for Esoteric Studies holds a subjective group conference. This year, our focus is on unity in diversity, the science of right human relations. From April till June, we will meditate together, study relevant writings, and share practical strategies for improving how we relate with each other. Join us to help build inclusive communities. Check on our subjective group conference at esotericstudies.net. That's the School for Esoteric Studies at esotericstudies.net.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. We are going to wrap up this show on silence. It's been so interesting. What an interesting topic, huh, Dorothy? Who knew that that talking about silence within right speech would be so rich? It's been lots of really, really wonderful points. And silence, I used to live in New York City, and more than half, probably 90% of the reason I moved up to a mountaintop in northern Massachusetts is silence. I really needed to cultivate more silence in my life. My nervous system was actually beginning to vibrate. And Dorothy, it was actually like a year until all of a sudden I realized this buzz that was constant in my ears went away. So my whole body was actually vibrating from the noise pollution of New York City. So I have a feeling that so many of our listeners understand that, right? That really silence is something in this modern world that you've got to cultivate. You've got to create that in your environment. You've got to make time for silence, not unlike the woman who said her kids would, your friend, that her kids had 10 minutes every day of silence, and great things came of that. It's a good thing.
Well, Steve, I must say that I myself live outside of Vancouver, Canada, and I used to live in Vancouver, which is a large city, and now I go into Vancouver once a week, and I find it exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's all of it, it's the noise, it's the energy is both intense and very tangled. And it's one of the quotes that I love is, "Joyfulness is the silence that sounds." And to me, that comes back to the whole idea that there's always vibration there. And the sound, for me, the sound of silence is very expansive. It's very calming. And it is, and as I said before, it's very centering. And I think that one of the disciplines that we may not value, but that is very important, is seeking times of solitude. You know, we have a lot of cultural messages that go against this kind of practice. We talk about solitude as being lonely, you know, if we're not having somebody to interact with, or we have a lot of value placed on extroversion in our society, that and there's something wrong with introversion, whereas introversion is that disposition to become renewed through solitude, through silence, as opposed to through interaction with people and all of that external vibration.
Yeah, I really...
To me, it's only when you turn off, when you purposely disconnect for a period of time. Some people do that, you know, for meditation, but they don't do it at other times. And I think it's not just when you're doing a structured meditation. It's in the Ageless Wisdom discipline. To me, a part of the teaching is that we're in a meditative state all the time, 24/7. And part of that meditative state is seeking that solitude, that yearning for silence, which allows us to tap into the soul.
And I find definitely that meditation is a very dynamic experience. It's not about shutting anything out. And so solitude and silence really go hand in hand with meditation, in that when we're in a noisy environment, you know, you've certainly experienced this, as you say, in Vancouver, and myself in New York City. When there's a jackhammer beside you, you have no choice but to remove yourself from all that's happening in the environment, because the vibration is so strong. You actually have to shut something out. And I find that meditation is actually not about shutting anything out, but allowing in. And so, you know, that sort of getting comfortable with solitude and getting comfortable with silence is really not about removing oneself, but it's actually about opening oneself to a more dynamic or finer vibration of experience, or of mind space, right? Of clearing the junk and the distortions. Tim's favorite line you've ever said about, he says it all the time about meditation. You've said that meditation is about clearing the distortions of the mind. And so, you know, as we sort of remove all of the excess, we can find that beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I also love. Go on.
I think part of it is what we define as noise pollution. You know, you were talking about the jackhammer. I mean, you know, there are noise bylaws about when that kind of noise can take place. But if we just reflect on our environment and think about what is it that jangles us up or revs us up as opposed to allowing us to be clearly centered. That I would think that anything that does not contribute to being clearly centered is really polluting.
Yeah, it's disturbing the silence of just the vibrationally. We talked about that on the first show, that sound is a vibration, and when the vibrations are really scattered and really intense, we can't be centered. Remember, TVs used to go blank at 1 a.m., right, Dorothy? Do you remember that day?
No.
They used to have fuzz, back in the day. They would stop broadcasting at midnight and they would come back on at 6 a.m. Goodness, you think today we'd go crazy if we didn't have 24-hour news. So cultivating silence is really about giving yourself that time away from that action, that sound and noise in our environment. I also think that it's a wonderful exercise if you've got a partner, you've got friends, to actually just go for a walk with your friends and make a conscious choice to not talk, to just be together as beings and to observe together. It can be a wonderful exercise, because we think just because we're together we have to talk. And I know my partner and I will go for walks in the woods, and we will, even before the walk, say, hey, let's just have a walk where we're just observing, or we're just listening, or we're just smelling, where nature's got so much to offer for our senses. And we often will find that since we work together, we'll talk about work all the time, and we'll say, hey, let's just be silent. And they are some of the most rich and beautiful walks, is to be together in silence. It can be such a beautiful experience, and I find people don't give themselves that as much as they could.
Well, I think you're talking also about a cultural value, because cultures differ in terms of whether just being in silence is enough, or whether you have to be doing something, right? And I remember I have, having grown up in Asia, I have a lot more cultural experience with being in environments where being was valued. And I remember I was in Beijing, China. I had been there for the summer teaching, and I had developed a very strong friendship with the mother of one of my students back in the United States. She was just a wonderful woman, and I knew that at the end of the summer that I was unlikely to see her again, both in terms of her age and because of whether or not I would be in a situation of returning. And it was a tense environment in that in China at that time, any foreigner that came to your home had to be reported. So if I were to go to her home, that would have to be reported. But she asked me to come on the day before I had to leave. And what I became aware of when I was there was it wasn't to do anything. It wasn't even to have any particular conversations. It was just to be together quietly. It was a very precious moment in time.
Profound, right? That you speak of it, I can sense that it had a profound impact on you. Much silence. Well, I think that's a beautiful note to leave this show on. That silence is rich. It really allows for us to experience the fullness of our lives and the fullness that another has to offer. So, Dorothy, we are going to continue with our talk on right speech. We've got 2 more weeks left, and we'd love to hear from our listeners. If there's anything that you've got to say about silence, or anything that you've got to say about right speech, or questions you have about right speech, we would love to hear from you. So you could send us an email to spiritfireradio@spiritfire.com, and go to spiritfireradio.com to hear some of our past shows. We've talked about humanity's spiritual path. We've talked about hope, just amazing shows on hope. So, Dorothy, I look forward to the rest of the month. It's going to be great.
Absolutely. This is lovely.
All right, Dorothy, you have a wonderful week, and I will be back with you next week for our next episode. And listeners, thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Fire Radio. Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern for your weekly guide to purposeful living and practical spirituality. Join hosts Steve Kramer and Dorothy Riddle as they shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in your everyday life. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. To learn more, visit spiritfireradio.com.